Navigating Plus, the Broadband Development Tuesday trainings in April. My name is Bree Mackey, and I'm the Executive Director here at the Office of Broadband Development. Just want to thank you all for joining us again. If this is the first time you've joined or your fourth time, as a reminder, all of our trainings are available on our website and have been recorded, so please look for those as reference. First and foremost, you may see a lot of names on the participant list that look familiar from our office. Just want to say thank you to the team for not only helping to put this webinar series together, but also they're all here to be resources to all of you, and hope that you feel like you can reach out to any one of us at any time to try to navigate the complicated place that broadband is in the work that we all do. We have been excited to join other members of state agencies who help make broadband possible in the deployment of it. And today we will be joined by the DNR. A few updates I just wanted to provide from the Office of Broadband before we get started is, as a reminder, this is our 10th year anniversary. And so we are certainly thankful for the statutory language that was created in 2013 to make this office possible, with the Office of Broadband opening its doors and first grant rounds in 2014. So thank you to all who have helped us celebrate this year. As well as we did make grant awards of $50 million to our local internet service providers back in March, and we're currently in our grant round 10 that is open and will close on May 10th. And just a flag, that does close at 1:30 p.m., the application portal, so just make note of that does not end at the close of day or at the end at 11:59. So again, reminder, May 10th at 1:30. We are finalizing bids for our line extension round 2 program and have been making notifications if you are signed up for our biweekly email blasts or any blasts that we do send out trying to get information out. You probably have read about that. And we are already working on our next round of work for the round 3 awards. We're also very excited that our Digital Opportunity Plan was approved by NTIA at the end of March, and now we're working hard to complete the notice of funding by the deadline date. And we are going to get in the first round of funding around $12 million to be able to target the things that we identified in the Digital Opportunity Plan to achieve the needs in Minnesota. And so working really hard on that. And again, the team has been laser focused on making sure we're thinking about what is in the best interest and what Minnesota had identified as needs. Our BEAD, so the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, which is the infrastructure part of the IIJA funding. We're currently working with NTIA to finalize those plans and cure them so that they meet what NTIA needs, as well as hopefully continue to push for what Minnesota model has looked like. And so we're continuing to work with that. And then just want to flag that the challenge process will be coming out soon, and this is why, more than ever, please make sure to sign up for those bi-weekly email blasts if you do not get them, so that you can stay on top of the information that will be going from the challenge process. And finally, just again, want to thank everybody for joining these. Hopefully they are helpful and a meaningful step. We know we need to continue to provide information to the people who are doing the work to deploy broadband across the state of Minnesota and really helping people get connected. And so if you have suggestions or ideas in the future, we'd love to hear them. But with that, as I mentioned, today's session is the Department of Natural Resources, and this session will cover information around utility license application and processes. Today we're joined by Pam, Derek, and Ben. Each have expertise within the DNR to help walk through all of the things that are needed during a broadband project. They will give presentations, and then we are going to take some time at the end for questions, so you can hold them or put them in the chat, and both Megan and Carol are here to help navigate those when we get to the question answer part. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the DNR, and again, thank them for their time bringing this information to all of you.
Good morning. I'm Pam Arndt, and I'm with the Department of Natural Resources, Division of Lands and Minerals, and I'm a realty specialist senior. I'm located in the Northwest region, and I assist with utility license applications. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Derek Hilding. I'm an attorney with the DNR Division of Lands and Minerals. I office out of St. Paul, and among other things, I advise staff on utility license matters and review terms and conditions of utility licenses. Thanks for being with us today.
Good morning. This is Pam again. Ben will be joining us. He's going to be a few minutes late, so he just asked if I would just put in a introduction for him. He's with our Lands and Minerals Division, and he's housed out of our southern region, assisting staff with utility license application process in the southern part of the state. Thank you.
Thank you, DNR staff. One moment, and I will start the video portion of the webinar. And when that's completed, we will go to our question and answer session. Just a reminder, if you have a question and you're burning to ask it, go ahead and put it in the chat. Otherwise, we'll do the raise hand after the video session is over. Thank you. One moment, I need to adjust the settings for the sound. I apologize for that. I'll be 1 moment with you. Okay, let's try it again, this time with sound. My apologies.
Hello, I'm Cheryl Kelly-Dobie, State Program Administrative Director with the Division of Lands and Minerals. Today I'm covering Section 1, which is an introduction to the Utility License Program. Section Overview. In this section, we will cover region staff introductions, a general overview of the Utility License Program, public land crossings, and public water crossings. Region staff introductions. Utility licenses are processed by DNR staff who work in the region in which your project is located. Our regional offices are located in Bemidji, Grand Rapids, St. Paul, and New Ulm. On this map to your right, you'll find the contact information for the regional leads. However, your project will be assigned to a project manager located within the region that your project is located. A link to the statewide DNR map is located on our webpage. The DNR general overview. The DNR manages 5.6 million acres of state land on behalf of the citizens of Minnesota. A utility crossing license must be obtained from the Department of Natural Resources, the DNR, for the passage of any utility crossing over, under, or across any state land or public water. Utility licenses are generally required for the installation of electrical, pipeline, and communication projects. The DNR's Division of Lands and Minerals is responsible for granting licenses to utility companies crossing state land or public water with utility infrastructure projects. Utility licenses are granted for a term of 25 or 50 years and may be renewed when they expire. Most licenses are issued for a term of 50 years. Public land crossings. To confirm that your project crosses state land managed by DNR, consult the DNR website for interactive maps. The map shown on the screen gives you an idea of the amount of public land that may exist in your project area. You can find our interactive maps at the Minnesota DNR Recreation Compass, Minnesota DNR Land View, and ArcGIS shapefiles of DNR managed land are available at the Minnesota Geospatial Commons. If a project crosses state land managed by another agency, for example, MnDOT, the utility company proposing the crossing must contact that agency. If a project crosses state tax forfeited land, utility company must contact the county in which the land is located. Public water crossings. The term public waters is defined by Minnesota law, Minnesota statute, section 103G.005, subdivision 15. Public waters are generally depicted on the public waters inventory list, the public waters inventory maps, or both. It is important to confirm if a utility project crosses a public water body. Please locate all project crossings on the public water inventory maps, also known as PWI maps. Please note, not all public waters are on the PWI maps. Contact your regional Lands and Mineral staff with questions. Public Waters Basin GIS data used for the GIS-based PWI maps are available at Minnesota Geospatial Commons.
Hello, my name is Derek Hilding. I'm an attorney with the DNR Division of Lands and Minerals. I'm presenting Section 2 covering legal information. Section Overview. In the presentation today, I'm going to briefly discuss legal requirements for DNR utility licenses, possible constraints on DNR's ability to grant a license, limited situations where a DNR utility license may not be needed, signature authority, how the application you submit becomes part of the terms and conditions of the license, and finally, I'll wrap up with a few closing remarks. Legal requirements for DNR utility licenses. As an executive branch agency, DNR's role is to implement and enforce laws that have been enacted by the state legislature. The legislature has enacted a framework that governs the DNR's issuance of utility crossing licenses. This is found in Minnesota Statute Section 84.415, and we have a little snippet of that statute here on this slide. I'm going to refer to this statute section as the utility license law for the rest of my presentation. If you are interested in reviewing the utility license law in full, it can be found online at the Minnesota Revisor of Statutes website. The utility license law sets the broad parameters of DNR's utility license program. As directed by the utility license law, DNR has promulgated administrative rules that contain additional standards and criteria for utility crossing licenses. The administrative rules are found in Minnesota Administrative Rules, Chapter 6135, which are also available on the Minnesota Revisor of Statutes website. Of note, the administrative rules set forth the crossing fee amounts and the design standards for utility crossings of state land and public waters. The overarching requirement of both the utility license law and the administrative rules is for utility crossings to have a minimum adverse impact on the environment. It is also important to keep in mind that the utility license law does not require DNR to grant utility licenses in any particular instance. The law says that DNR may grant utility licenses. As will be discussed in more detail in other portions of this presentation, there can be reasons why DNR would decide not to issue or could not issue a utility license in a particular situation. Examples include if existing land uses are not compatible or resource review has raised a concern with issuing a license in a particular area. Possible constraints. This is getting at things that could affect DNR's ability to grant a utility license in a particular situation, or the terms and conditions of a license that would be needed in a particular situation. If DNR is going to issue a utility license, the crossing cannot unduly interfere with existing use of state land. Additional coordination may be needed. Examples would include if the state land at issue is subject to existing state mineral leases, easements, leases, other utility licenses, etc. There may also be reasons why DNR just cannot issue a utility license, such as a deed restriction from when DNR acquired the property, or a funding restriction imposed by the funding source DNR used to acquire the property. Limited situations where a DNR utility license may not be needed. This slide discusses the limited situations, and I want to emphasize the word limited, where a company may not need a utility license from DNR. A utility company may have legal rights to install or operate a utility that existed prior to DNR owning a particular parcel of land. This could be from an existing utility easement granted by a prior landowner. In that situation, it would be important to review the language in the easement document to determine the rights that were granted and the terms and conditions of the utility use. Other pre-existing rights could include prescriptive rights. Prescriptive rights are a complex legal concept that I'm certainly not going to fully cover today, but they could potentially arise if a utility has been operated on a property without permission from the landowner for a long period of time before DNR acquired the property. There are certain legal requirements that need to be met to establish a valid prescriptive right. It is important to note that prescriptive rights would only apply on lands that DNR acquired some point along the way, and they would need to be based on the time prior to the state's ownership. Minnesota law is clear that prescriptive rights cannot be established against state property. So this means that prescriptive rights cannot exist on lands DNR has owned since statehood, such as school trust lands that were granted by the federal government. And prescriptive claims cannot arise on utilities installed on state lands without a license. Signature authority. Changing gears a little bit, I also want to briefly discuss signature authority. Getting into the details of this topic can be complicated, and there's nuance, so we're not going to do a deep dive on this by any means. But DNR does encounter issues with this, so we want to put it on your radar. As would be the case with signing any legal document, in general, DNR needs to ensure the person signing the utility license on behalf of the company has the proper legal authority to bind the company to the license requirements and obligations. Again, I won't get into the particulars because the details will depend on whether the company is a corporation, limited liability company, limited liability partnership, cooperative, municipality, etc. But if the person that will be signing the license does not have clear apparent authority under Minnesota law, DNR will likely require additional documentation to evidence signature authority, such as a company board resolution or delegation of authority document. If you have questions on this, please consult with your company's legal counsel. Application is part of license. On this slide, I have a note about a pretty unique feature of DNR's utility licenses. The application a company submits for the license, if DNR approves it, becomes a binding part of the license itself. For example, the company is required to comply with the crossing location and installation method described in the approved application. I want to mention this today because it's a reason to make sure applicants are submitting good, clear applications. Also, applicants should be sure that the application contains crossing specifications the company can actually achieve. Disclaimer. I hope you found this really brief legal overview of DNR's utility license program helpful. Please keep in mind that this presentation is not legal advice. DNR attorneys like me do not represent you. Our job is to look out for the state's interests in these transactions and to ensure the legal requirements are being met. If you have legal questions that arise during the application process, license signature process, or at any other step, you'll need to consult with your own legal counsel. But for non-legal questions, feel free to reach out to DNR Lands and Minerals Regional Operations staff at the URL provided on this slide. They will be your point of contact during the license process. I hope you enjoy the rest of the presentation and have a good day. Thank you.
Today we're covering Section 3, Utility License Application Overview. Overview of the utility license application, benefits of submitting a complete application, construction design to limit natural resource impacts, construction methods, construction plans and maps, and a review of the DNR utility license website. Overview of the utility license application. State land crossings and public water crossings must be on separate applications. Only one company and utility type per application. As an example, a fiber optic line and electric line would need separate applications even if they're using the same bore. An application may have as many crossings as necessary if they are all part of the same project and the same utility type. Please submit associated land and water crossing applications at the same time. Please fill out the application completely, following the instructions, and provide the requested additional information and maps. If we do not have a complete application, we will ask for more information, and it will delay the processing of your application up to 2 weeks or possibly even more. We have multiple applications to process at any given time. Benefits of submitting a complete application. Minnesota state law requires a utility application. Minnesota state and federal laws also require avoiding the destruction of threatened and endangered species. By submitting a complete application, including the required documentation, you will not only save time for yourself, you will also allow DNR staff to focus on the processing of applications. Construction design to limit natural resource impacts. The Department of Natural Resources is required to follow Minnesota Administrative Rules Chapter 6135 for utility crossings, as shown on the right. The application requirements help DNR to fulfill statute requirements. These statutes include rules for fee schedules and rate tables, environmental protections, route and structure design, and construction methods, and more. Companies are required to follow the least impactful environmental construction method regardless of cost. If a company is unable to do a project with the least impactful construction method, the company must explain why another method was the only viable option. This can be done through project description, underwater application considerations, amongst other information. Construction methods. The DNR encourages low-impact crossings, which typically do not disturb the resource. These applications process faster since there is no resource review needed. Examples of low-impact construction methods include boring or jacking, attachment to a bridge, use of existing conduit, pole, or structure, and plowing into the roadbed. Construction plans and maps. With your application, keep your diagrams clean. Details should include only those pertinent to the public land or water crossing. Use clear naming convention. Maps should have file names that are easy to understand. For example, cross-section diagram, not just scan numbers. Number the pages and label each map. For example, crossing number 1, crossing number 2 on your application should be labeled as such on the map as shown to your right. For more information you can find regarding utility crossing licenses, you can go to our website at the link provided. At this location, you can also find your contacts with Lands and Minerals Regional Operations staff. Please visit this website for additional information. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Krista Hauk, Realty Specialist with Lands and Minerals. I'm presenting Section 4 of the training. This section covers funding restrictions. In this section, we will discuss state and federal funding reviews, what to expect, additional information that may be needed, exceptions, and state land to avoid. State and federal funding reviews. State funding in the form of grants for land acquisition and habitat development can place land use restrictions on DNR land, which could change the project plans. Federal funding, for uses similar to state, often requires the DNR to submit an application to use DNR land for a non-conservation use. Please note, DNR land crossings are always reviewed for state and federal funding. Funding review is not necessary for water crossings. What to expect. Funding restrictions can delay DNR's ability to grant permissions for certain non-conservation transactions, including utility licenses, for up to a year or more. DNR has staff who are specialists in federal funding. They prepare the applications requesting the federal funding agency to remove the funding restrictions from parcels needed for non-conservation uses. It is mainly an invisible process for the utility license applicant. Additional information may be needed. You may be asked to provide alternatives using the state conservation land for a utility project and how each of the alternative remedies were considered and then rejected or deemed not to be a workable or viable course of action. Also, cultural or heritage resource review documentation, including any previous correspondence with the State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO, or Cultural Resource Service previously completed, as well as endangered species review or correspondence with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service regarding endangered species. Exceptions. For some funding programs, there are exceptions based on pre-existing land use. For example, there may be evidence of road or access drive existence prior to state ownership. For some funding programs, this can trigger an exception to the funding review. State land to avoid. State parks. There are a lot of federal funds put into the development of state parks. They should be avoided as routes for utilities if at all possible. The applicant will need to show there is no alternative to use the state park land. Scientific and natural areas. These are areas set aside for conservation because they contain some of the rarest and most endangered plant and animal species. There is a high bar for any non-conservation use of these lands.
Hello, my name is Martha Vickery. I'm the coordinator in the Central Region at DNR Lands and Minerals. I'm going to be talking about submitting a complete application. We have 6 sections to go through: our utility license application, the crossing table instructions, crossing table legal descriptions, crossing table right-of-way measurements of length and width, plans and maps for a land and water crossing, and frequently asked questions at the end. There are 4 pages in the utility license application. On page 1, there's an applicant's section, the legal name of the company, which should be from the Secretary of State's Active Records website, the applicant's project number, which is your company's project number. Only one project is allowed per application. And there's a section that asks, is the project funded in whole or in part by a state or federal grant? If the answer is yes, please enter the name of the grant there. And then there is a chart on the second page which lays out the application fees and license fees and the different fees for different types of licenses. These are the first 2: electric, cable, conduits, distribution or transmission lines. One type of license is less than 100 kV, and the other type is greater than 100 kV. And then they're split into water license or DNR land crossing license. You can see that there's application fee column and then a license fee column. License fee is submitted with the signed license. And then there's a section for additional application fees, which we'll explain in a few minutes. These are the other 3 license types and their fees. Pipelines, either non-main, which means it goes to just one unit or house, or a main pipeline, which is a distribution line. Either a water crossing or a land crossing. And the main pipelines are charged more, as you can see. And then at the bottom, communication lines, which are telephone, cable TV, fiber optic, or any other, both land and water crossings. I just wanted to highlight that some fees are sent in with the application and others are sent along with the signed document. We do this because we don't know when the license is sent in exactly how all these crossings will process. Sometimes crossings are dropped or sometimes some are added. So we want to try to bill you for the correct amount. That's why we do these fee calculations during the processing and bill later. On the third page, there's an application fee determination worksheet, which should help applicants work out how much money is going to be owed at each step. So it asks about electric lines, whether it's 100 kV or greater, and the prices for water and land. It asks about pipelines, whether the pipelines are main or non-main, and the amounts for each. And then it talks about communication lines. If the application is for communication line crossing, telephone, cable, fiber optic, or other. And then in the middle of this third page, there's some questions to help determine whether 2 or more applications may require only one application fee. So if it's a joint application for residential use pursuant to this particular statute, separate applications can be submitted, but they'll be joined together and processed as one. And then on item C, based on the answers to the above questions, you are asked to mark the appropriate box and pay the fees accordingly. The application fee has to be included with the application. Please make the check payable to Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. No action will be taken on the application until the required application fee is received. The application fee is not refundable, even if the application is withdrawn or denied. This is a section at the bottom of that page on the fees to be paid when billed. So for each crossing, there is a one-time license fee. The water crossing fee is based on a fee table, and the land crossing fee is based on both the fee table and the assessed valuation of the land. And the fee tables are found in this Minnesota rules and can be used to estimate the license fee. Another type of fee that has to be paid when billed is timber damages or other property damages that will happen during construction. And then on letter F, additional application fee, an additional $500 application fee is required for each water or land crossing application with 3 or more crossings. For the third and any other crossings, the fee is $500 for each additional crossing. For applications with 1 or 2 crossings, there's no additional fee. For example, for this additional fee, an application with 5 total crossings would require an additional fee of $1,500 or 3 times $500. Do not include a payment for any license fees with your application. The application should be sent with the application fee only. The applicant will be billed for additional fees when the license is sent out for signature. In the next page, the fourth page, is the crossing table. The crossing columns are on the number of the crossings is on the far left. You can see there's 6 on this. So crossings have to start with number 1 and be numbered consecutively. Maps should be labeled with the same crossing numbers. For both land and water crossings, the utility right-of-way width of the utility corridor should be the width needed for construction and maintenance. And the 40 or lot column. This has to be a quarter section or government lot number. We don't accept coordinates or county parcel numbers in this column. And then across the page is the section, township, range, and the county name. And these have to match the maps and other materials throughout. And then in the middle is the water name if it's a water crossing, or the DNR land unit if it's a land crossing. You can find water names on public waters inventory maps, and the applicant has to verify their public waters. Land unit names for DNR lands are in the map of Minnesota state lands, such as the Recreation Compass or an ARC map layer. And just a note, not all public waters are on these PWI maps. You'll need to contact the regional lands and minerals staff if there's questions about this. And then the third from the last column is the construction method. If it's not a low impact method, a reclamation plan must accompany the application. And you can see when you do the license, well, you can see an arrow there. That means it's a drop-down menu. So you can choose the low impact method there, or say other, which would mean it's not low impact, and a reclamation plan has to accompany the application when it's submitted. Also on land crossings, when crossing a DNR land unit, in this case it's Land O'Lakes State Forest, there may be many quarters, 40s, or government lot descriptions as part of the land unit crossing. Enter each 40 or government lot description as a different crossing. For example, crossing 1 is 140, crossing 2 is another, etc. And for water crossings, we go by the measurement at the ordinary high water level, from bank to bank or shore to shore. Include each quarter, also a 40, or government lot description for each crossing. One crossing may have multiple legal descriptions. In this example, Sibley County is on the left, Scott County is on the right, and the county line is that purple line in the middle. So there are two number 2s. They're both in the same 40, but they're in different counties. That's what that is supposed to show. And then for utility width, we want to see the width needed for installation and future maintenance of the line. Please round up to the nearest whole number. Do not use decimals. If the project is a narrow underwater crossing, enter 9 feet. That is the minimum width that's allowed. Right-of-way length in feet, that would be the distance across the public water body, either measuring from bank to bank or shore to shore at the ordinary high water level. Please round up to the nearest whole number, and again, don't use decimals. And also don't determine the distance across the public water body by measuring the distance from bore pit to bore pit or from pole to pole. The maps and plans should include a full route map, the entire route of the project with numbered crossings that match the crossing table. Also, we want to see a closer view, the crossings with the surrounding area showing the project location in reference to state lands and water. Also, we want to see a zoomed in view, the exact location of each individual crossing with the measurement. And just as a note, professional or engineering maps or plans are preferred. However, legible hand drawings and plans are acceptable. All plans should contain content specific to the project application. In other words, we want to see the definite location of the public water and of the state land that's being considered for crossing. Also under maps for water crossings, if the utility line is being placed along a roadway, the maps need to clearly show the side of the road on which the line will be installed, the distance from the center line of the road with the exact crossing location, the culvert or bridge width, distance from bank to bank or shore to shore at the ordinary high water level of the public water. And also, we want to see the location of bore pits or poles. The bore pits and the poles should be a distance from the public water to avoid erosion. Also, concerning water crossing plans, we want to see cross sections which include the width in feet and length in feet of the public water crossing, bank to bank per the instructions, and we want to see the depth of the line installation. Our policy is it needs to be a minimum of 10 feet under the bed of the public water, although we know that more may be necessary in some cases. If the crossing is at a depth less than 10 feet, we require an explanation from the applicant on that. It should be on a separate memo. Also under maps for land crossings, if the utility line is parallel to a roadway, the map should include the distance from the center line of the road of the project, the exact crossing location, the distance in feet across the state land with state boundaries outlined, and the locations of any bore pits or poles. If possible, do not place the bore pits on the state land. We also know if trees will need to be cut. If not, we want it to be noted on the map. And we want to know if the utility work will be done entirely within the utility right-of-way. Also under maps for land crossings, this would also require a cross-section view, the utility width needed for the project, the length in feet across the state land, and the proposed depth of the utility line below the surface of the state land, if that's the installation method. So some frequently asked questions are, for example, how big can one application be? An application should be for a single project. If there are multiple projects, we would like to have all the applications prioritized as to which has to be done first. It's preferred that you email each application separately. It helps us keep our record straight. And concerning e-signing, the application can be e-signed, but make sure the document is not locked. An e-signature often locks the document and it cannot be edited. And if e-signing, print out and scan the relevant pages so that the document will not be locked. The date of signature must be included, and it has to be re-signed and redated every time an application is submitted, including when an in-process application is revised. And if possible, do not send the application instructions along with your application.
This section covers finalization of the utility license application process. In this section, we will discuss what happens when the application is received by DNR, what happens if the application is approved by DNR, such as signatures and fees are needed, how the DNR executes a utility license, and additional requirements. What happens when the application is received by DNR? The DNR will assign a license number after the application and application fee, if applicable, are received and processed. For most projects, other than certain low-impact projects, the DNR will send an acknowledgement letter or email to the applicant and agent, if applicable, to let them know the license number and the DNR staff person to contact to discuss the application status. The process if the application is approved by DNR. If the application is approved by the DNR will prepare a utility license document. The DNR will send the license document to the applicant and copy the agent, if applicable, for signature and payment of the license crossing fee and monitoring fee, if applicable. The license must be signed by someone with delegated authority. For companies, if the person signing is not an officer, the applicant must also provide a copy of the power of attorney or board resolution which authorizes this person to sign on behalf of the company. How the DNR executes utility licenses. After the applicant returns the license document along with the license crossing fee and monitoring fee, if applicable, the DNR will sign the document. A copy of the completed, fully executed license will then be returned to the applicant and agent will be copied if applicable. Additional requirements. Under the terms of the licensee must notify the DNR before starting work. After installation of the utility, the licensee should submit an as-built survey to the DNR showing the actual location of the utility lines and utility right-of-way. This as-built survey may either be referenced to public land location section lines or must show the location in one of the following recognized systems: latitude and longitude, UTMs, Universal Transverse Mercator, or county coordinates, in the North American Datum NAD of 1983.
Hello, my name is Ellen Preisinger, and I'm a realty specialist with the Division of Lands and Minerals. I am presenting on Section 7, covering maintenance of existing utility lines. In this section, we will be talking about maintenance of existing utility lines and what to provide with a maintenance request. When an existing utility corridor over state land needs to be cleared, mowed, or the infrastructure replaced, this is known as a maintenance activity. Maintenance is specified in the terms of the license. Refer to the license for allowed types of maintenance activities. The DNR requests 20 business days to review proposed maintenance activities, starting when the correct information is received, and assess any resource concerns for the state's land. We will need the proof of land rights. Please provide license number or send a copy of your recorded utility line easement. Where no land rights exist, the utility company is required to apply for a license for the existing corridor. Please include clear maps and legal descriptions. Describe the work to be done and the expected timeline for the project. Resource staff may specify a modified timeline to protect resources. For example, no tree work can be done during bird nesting season. Use of state land is prohibited. A lease is required for any use of state land outside the utility corridor.
My name is Benjamin Schaefer. I am the Southern Region Operations Coordinator for the Minnesota DNR, Division of Lands and Minerals. I'm going to be reviewing the final section of this workshop entitled Additional Resources and Conclusion. In this final section, we're going to look at the utility license website, review several common questions that our website answers, share some additional information regarding non-DNR resources that you might find helpful, and finally, answer any questions that you might still have. We encourage you to bookmark the DNR Utility License website. Our website has the latest version of the utility license application, an editable PDF. You can also find an overview of the utility license program, instructions on how and where to send your application, DNR region-specific contact information, current utility license law, and answers to common questions. Over the next 3 slides, you're going to be able to read brief answers to some of the most common questions we get regarding the utility license program at the DNR. These common questions can be found by scrolling to the bottom of the DNR utility license website. A few of the questions include, what are the license fees? How can I confirm that my project is crossing DNR land? When are flight bird diverters required to be placed on overhead lines? It is likely that some of the questions that you have are answered in this section of the website. We encourage you to use this as a reference in the future. We put together several non-DNR websites that you might find helpful as you prepare for your next utility project in Minnesota. These websites include Prevailing Wage in Minnesota, DEED, Office of Broadband Development, Minnesota Public Utilities Commission, Minnesota Counties, and Minnesota Statutes. Feel free to use these websites as a reference. Thank you again for taking the time to listen and participate in the DNR Utility License Workshop. We hope that you found it beneficial and helpful as you apply for your next utility license from the Minnesota DNR. We look forward to working with you on your next project.
That completes the video portion of today's webinar. And now we'll open it up for questions for DNR staff. If there are any, please raise your hand or write your question in the chat. Thank you. Carol has posted a link for the Webinar Plus series, as today's is the fourth and final in a series of 4. That's in the chat. And is there anyone with any questions or comments on DNR processes?
Is forestry, the Department of Forestry, is that a separate division? And how does that play into the permits?
Hi, this is Pam. I can take that question. The Division of Forestry is a separate division within the Department of Natural Resources, but we at the Division of Lands and Minerals with your utility license application will coordinate with forestry on your utility.
Thank you for that question. Go ahead.
There are some projects that require multiple divisions to have input, and so you mentioned forestry. Ecological water resources also might affect your project where you would need some sort of waters permit as well. So we're not always the only state or division within the DNR that you would need to work with, but like Pam said, we can help facilitate some of the coordination between other divisions as well.
In the chat, we have a question from Ed Roberts. When will the PWI map be made into a GIS format?
Pam, I don't know if you know, but I don't know of that being a project right now. Some of the projects we're currently working on behind the scenes, we are working on a process to have the application be online, and so it'd be you fill it out online, and it would also allow for payment to be made electronically online at the time of submission. So there are some things that we're currently working on. I'm not familiar that GIS PWI Maps is one of those currently. Pam?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of at this time.
Well, we will make a note of that as a concern or question that was brought up, so thank you.
Michelle, you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name is Michelle. It's in regards to aerial. Is there like I'm dealing with an SNA, a WMA, AMA, the different areas. Are you better off to go aerial or not necessarily?
I mean, or are you okay to bore those type of lands? Or would you prefer, like, I could go aerial or I could bore? I guess, to take the less intrusive, I would go aerial. But does that matter or not necessarily?
Just so I can clarify, you're talking about either putting an overhead line or trenching and burying a utility line?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I guess so I work out of the southern region, so the 32 counties that make up DNR southern region. We do take it on a case-by-case basis. Like you identified some of the different types of ownership we have in the state. It could be a wildlife management area, aquatic management area, scientific and natural area. So scientific, oftentimes there's a rare species, and depending on where they're located. So I don't know. I think we probably would take it more on a case-by-case basis, and getting resource comments from our divisions, we might come up with a plan that might be different than what you propose. Pam, anything to add for that?
No, other than we would want to limit any natural resource impacts. So I guess, to move forward with a project like that, to submit your application, and as resource staff review it, we could have some back and forth discussion if they're proposing a different method of installation through different properties.
I'll just briefly jump in too from a legal standpoint. One thing that comes to my mind from this discussion, part of our utility licensing rules actually do specifically address what we call special use areas, which include scientific and natural areas. And what the rules say is basically the default presumption is you avoid them, quote, but if there's no feasible alternative route, then utilities shall be placed underground. So I agree with what Ben and Pam are saying, and might need further discussion and consulting on that one, but the rules kind of presume either avoiding SNAs, or if there's no alternative, then it would be underground there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do we have any further questions from the attendees? Carol will put the email to the Office of Broadband Development in the chat. If you do have any questions after this webinar, you may email us at d.broadband@state.mn.us. I'll just give a few moments in case anyone else has a question or comment. Okay, well, it looks like there are no further questions or comments. Thank you so much to DNR staff. We appreciate your time and your effort in answering these questions today. And just a reminder, you can go to the Office of Broadband website to watch all 4 of the videos in the Permitting, Land Use, and State Systems series from this month. This video will be posted within a week, so it may not be up immediately. Thank you again for attending, and that concludes today's webinar.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Thanks.